to play the Beethoven Moonlight Sonata. We're going to touch on a couple of questions that two different viewers asked about the first movement and the third movement. So in this presentation, you're going to learn a little bit about how to control voicings in the Moonlight Sonata in the famous slow first movement. This is one of the great challenges of piano playing. Being able to balance the hands is hard enough, but what about when you have two different parts in one hand and you want to play one part louder than the other in one hand? This is a tremendous challenge, and I'm going to give you some techniques of how you can practice that for yourself. This is intrinsic to piano playing, incidentally, so you can use the lessons you're going to learn today for all of your music. All right, of course, the beginning of the Moonlight Sonata, after the brief introduction, you probably are all familiar with the So in the right hand, you have triplets on the bottom and then a slow melody on top. Now this is doubly difficult. Why? Because the triplet notes keep repeating over and over while the long held notes are fading out, because as you well know on a piano, notes fade out as you hold them. And so if you have faster notes, they're going to naturally be louder. So if you just try to play some notes louder than the other, you might not be able to do it at first. So you wonder, well, how can you practice such a thing? I've got a great technique for you. Instead of just practicing louder and softer in the right hand, practice with two completely different articulations. Play the melody legato and play the accompaniment part staccato from the fingers. This will give you control. And if you put the hands together, by practicing in that extreme manner, it identifies for you is the feel of the melody compared to the accompaniment. You can practice playing the accompaniment lighter and lighter with just a little tiny touch of the fingers. And then when you do play it as written with the legato triplets on the bottom, feel that you're reaching for the melody notes, and you'll be able to delineate those notes louder than the accompaniment simply by reaching. It's important, of course, to practice without the pedal a great deal so you can accomplish the independence of the fingers from one another and hear the voices clearly. The pedal is literally the last thing you add. This is a technique you can use in all your music to bring out your melody. In almost anything, you can practice playing the accompaniment parts staccato and the melody parts legato first, then play it as written, and then finally add the pedal. How to play the last movement, specifically one particular little section that you can see on your screen there if you click on that. And I'm going to show you, of course, the last movement is fiery, unlike the lyrical first movement, which you all know. The last movement goes like a bat out of hell. And so on. And it was the very last couple of measures that Don wondered about. How do you do this? What's going on? And to slow that way down so you can see what's happening, it's actually just a broken chord. And then the fifth finger on the C sharp changes to the thumb on the C sharp, and the same chord is played an octave higher. And then in the following measure, it's a diminished chord, but the same idea. You play to the fifth finger on the C sharp, and then it changes to the thumb, and it's the same chord again. So how do you do that? That's the question. Well, the secret is changing hand position instantly. And I have another video about hand positions and finger patterns that you might want to watch, but this is a great example of it. So if you're in your slow practice, what you want to do is to play just up to the second C sharp and be instantly over the chord an octave higher. Let me demonstrate. Now, when I played my thumb, I didn't just play the thumb, but I'm over the whole chord. You know, watch that again. And again in this octave, over the chord. And you can practice it actually up to speed, just getting over the chord. And being right over that chord. And the second chord, same thing. So that is the secret to it. It's being over the exact position on the pivot note, which in this case is the second C sharp, and it makes it very easy if you practice getting to that C sharp in time. And by the way, this is not just for this one section of the piece, this is for all of the piece and other pieces. So at the beginning, even though you have broken chords that are not quite as outstretched, it's the same idea. So as you start on, then as soon as you play this one, you're over this chord. You see how every time you come to the new note, the first note of the new hand position, you get over all the notes of that hand position. So that is the secret to not only the Beethoven Moonlight Sonata, the third movement, but for a lot of music. Find where the hand position changes and practice right to that new hand position, getting there instantly, but not going on. And once you can do that, then it'll be easy. It'll be much easier to be able to play the other notes because you're already there. This viewer, Leslie, actually asks this from some videos I have posted on the wonderful virtualsheetmusic.com website, which you should check out at the link below. I have a bunch of videos on there and more to come. So, Leslie asks, "Hi, Robert. Your video on pedal use with Moonlight Sonata was very helpful. I noticed you used the left pedal, una corda, as well. And I think you kept it down continually as you played. If so, why? Thank you for the huge amount of time you've devoted to helping us all learn to play better." Well, thanks, Leslie. I appreciate that. Well, you're absolutely right. Very perceptive. I do use the una corda pedal throughout the first movement of the Moonlight Sonata, usually, to give that soft sonority, because really, the entire movement is quiet. There are no really loud sections. There's a couple of little crescendo, decrescendos at the end, but fundamentally, it's all piano in color. Now, I will say this. If you've played a number of different pianos, you know that the una corda pedal, the soft pedal, the one on the left, has a dramatically different effect on different pianos. I played some pianos where you push the pedal down and there's almost no difference in the tone whatsoever. I played other pianos where you push that pedal down and it swallows up the tone almost entirely. So it's not always the same on different pianos. Depending upon the hall, the level of ambient noise of the audience or ventilation system, the amount of tonal change that the soft pedal imparts. Sometimes I will release it in different sections, even in the Moonlight Sonata. I might not use it at all on some pianos if it's just too much. So you have to use your ears ultimately. But generally speaking, if you're playing a concert level instrument in an ideal situation, the una corda pedal throughout the first movement of the Moonlight Sonata is probably a good idea. Try it out and see how you like it. And incidentally, upright pianos do not have true shifting una corda pedals that shift the action, enabling the hammers to not squarely hit the three strings. It affects the action, the touch, not the tone. So on an upright piano, it's a completely different situation, and I would say you could use the soft pedal or not, but it really is not a fundamental tonal shift as you get in a grand or baby grand piano. One of the great things about having a grand or baby grand, Thanks for joining me, and thanks for the great question, Leslie. And check out virtualsheetmusic.com if you're looking for music for almost any instrument. They're bound to have it. They've got a huge selection and some wonderful technologies as well for transposition and things like that. 5 techniques for playing the Moonlight Sonata. And I'm not talking about the furious last movement. No, we're talking about the beautiful, subtle first movement. There's a lot to this movement, much more than you think. A lot of people think, oh, well, that's easy. I can play the Moonlight Sonata. Boy, this is anything but easy to play this movement well. And I'm going to give you, by the end of this video, you're going to have a handle on how to approach really bringing this first movement of the Moonlight Sonata to a really high level. The first thing is just to learn the piece, learn this movement adequately, or securely, I should say. Practicing chords first, so you really solidify. Starting in the middle here, you'll see it's just a bunch of broken chords. So that's one thing. But of course, the biggest challenge of this movement is being able to project that melody on top with your weak pinky finger while not letting the triplet eighths dominate the sound. You don't want to hear this. It just loses everything. So how do you get the balance? A fantastic way to practice this, as I've shown before for those of you who've been following my channel for a while, is to practice with different articulations within the same hand. Now, this is very difficult to do at first, but it is well worth the effort if you already have a good command of the music. Now, if you're just learning the piece and you haven't really gotten it even where you can play through it adequately, don't try this technique yet. Wait until you have a good, solid performance. Then this is the way to take it to the next level. By playing the triplets with a gentle finger staccato, so your hand learns by articulations which notes to bring out, and watch as follows. You get the idea? The reason why this is so effective is because, number one, you can quantify short and long. Triplets, short, top line, long, much more than loud and soft, which is a little bit more relative rather than absolute. Secondly, you learn the feeling of those triplets relative to the secure arm weight that goes only in the top of your hand, leaning that way and just playing lightly with these fingers. It's amazing how you'll be able to then be able to get. So this is a great technique and worth your time once you have a command of the music. Now, another thing is so many people will play this movement too slowly and they'll get a sound like this. And you might think, well, this is adagio, so 1, 2, 3, 4, sounds like an adagio, a slow tempo. But notice it's written alla breve, cut time. This movement is written in 2-2, not 4-4, which means the pulse is the half note. This is a good slow pulse, isn't it? But if it's to the half note, then it's this. So, by thinking the half note as the pulse, it makes it so much more relaxed and it doesn't bog down getting too slow. Now, other things. I said there were 5 tips and we're almost there. The dotted rhythm is something you have to realize is not what you think it is. Because you have triplets and you might think that the 16th notes become between the last triplet and the next beat. So it would be like this. But that's not what the rhythm is, because a dotted rhythm is based upon 4 subdivisions of the beat. 3 plus 1. 4E and a 1. 4E and a 1. So the 16th note is longer. It comes in sooner than you think and is longer. So you get this sound instead of this. You get that's the way it goes. With that rhythm, and it gives it a serenity and a fullness and a relaxed quality, doesn't it? Instead of ba-bum, bum, bum, bum. That's the rhythm. And isn't it more relaxing and dreamy, which is what you're after? I promised 5 tips, and here's the last one. And this is a trademark of Beethoven. The idea of crescendo to subito piano. What does that mean? Suddenly soft. And it's a trademark you must take seriously. Don't think this is an oversight by Beethoven. He really meant it. So later on in this same section, you have a crescendo. You see how effective that is? Listen to how, if you don't do that, what you lose. Or if you just didn't make the crescendo. But it's so much more effective with that subito piano. So once again, to learn the piece and understand its harmonies, practice in chords first. In order to gain the melody against accompaniment, practice different articulations. Remember, the pulse, it's in 2/2 time, not 4/4 time. Make the pulse the half note, not the quarter note. It will be faster, but it'll feel slower because the pulse is slower than every quarter note, which is not what Beethoven intended. Look at the time signature, you'll see that for yourself. Remember the dotted rhythm. Don't rush, don't make those 16th notes too fast. They don't come halfway between the 3 triplets. It comes in a bit sooner than that, making those notes longer, giving it a much fuller, relaxed sound. And lastly, give the fire of Beethoven. Don't be afraid of making a crescendo to a subito piano. It's a trademark of Beethoven, leaving you on the edge of your seat, never knowing what to expect. Now think about this. I'm going to use an analogy to start off. If you're just watching a fire and it's just glowing embers and a little flame, you feel the heat energy of it. But when you see a fire and it's somewhat damped and every now and then whoosh, flames shoot out, it's like, whoa. Then you're afraid because you have no idea how much underlying power there is. So it gives the illusion of infinite power when you have no idea how much is lurking beneath. Well, that's exactly what you can do with your piano playing. And I'm going to demonstrate with the third movement of the Moonlight Sonata. All too often, people try to play it like this. It sounds labored and they're struggling. But if you look at the score, it's all written piano, except for one of the eighth notes, the first eighth note of that chord, and the next one in the next phrase. So if you lighten up everything except those chords, it's the same thing like that flaring of the fire coming out. So you see what I did there? Everything is underplayed. And so when those chords come out, it's just like boom, little bursts, little explosions. And this is a trademark of so many great pianists. Listen to Horowitz, for example. And he doesn't play everything loud, but when loud chords come, it's so shocking. And you have no idea the reserve of power. So here's what you can do, not just in the Moonlight Sonata. Any piece you're struggling with to play loud, take every part of the piece that you can possibly come down in volume and minimize it and work on your piano and pianissimo. Get everything as quiet as possible so that the range of expression is so large that you have the illusion of power. And you'll have the reserve because you don't wear yourself out trying to play too loud, except when it's really needed. And that range of expression and the reserve of power is what creates the illusion of power. It's not the sheer energy, it's the relationship between the soft and the loud, and never struggling, never being to the limit of what you can do, making your power seem limitless. Is the Moonlight Sonata of Beethoven hard? Well, a lot of you might think, well, the third movement. Well, that's hard. It's obviously hard. But what I'm talking about is the first movement. Everybody loves to play that first movement of the Moonlight Sonata. And yet, you might not realize how hard that movement actually is to be able to play it the way it should be played to its fullest potential. What makes it hard? Well, in a nutshell, you've got a slow melody on top, and then you've got all these faster triplets, and you don't want to hear it like this. I'm making no concessions whatsoever for the melody on top. You really want those triplets to be as quiet as possible, and you have to really delineate the melody way more than you think you need to, because when you have, listen how quiet that melody note is here. as it's fading out, but the triplets keep going. So you've got to really bring out the melody on top and really keep your fingers close to the keys, playing the accompaniment as quietly as possible and get the sound like this. And that creates such a mood because it makes everything feel slower when it's the melody bum, ba-dee, bum, ba-da, that you hear instead of do-do-dee, do-dee-dee, do-do-dee, do-do-dee. Those triplets are fast and it takes the mood away because it feels hurried hearing all those fast notes. Those fast notes should be just kind of like a babbling brook with a melody floating on top of that. Isn't that beautiful that way? How can you achieve this in your practice? I have videos on this, but I'm going to give you the little shortcut here of the way to practice it is to play with different articulations, as I've talked about before. If you like tips like this, I'm about to show you, consider going to the description and setting up a personal appointment with me for a consultation at the Living Piano Mastermind Club, where we cover things like this and far beyond. So watch this practice technique. Trains your hand to delineate melody from accompaniment. Or something like that. You get the idea of the practice technique. Because you know it's hard to quantify loud and soft, but short and long is binary. It's either short or it's long. Now, when you first try this, you're going to find that if you've never done it before, it's going to be exceedingly difficult. So what I recommend is take the right hand alone, go extremely slowly. And don't be afraid to really hammer out the melody notes so you can get that nice legato. Little finger staccato. And you go through the whole thing this way. And you get the distinction in your hand. Your hand learns accompaniment from melody. Then it's just one easy step to play loud and soft instead of short and long. It's a way to quantify your hand's position and the voicing of different parts within one hand. Try it out in your playing, because the Moonlight Sonata is not easy. And incidentally, that second movement might seem simple, but musically to pull it off and to have an idea and to get the gracefulness and the little bit of humor and the lightness. Very difficult. The third movement is obviously difficult in obvious ways of just sheer speed and power. But the other movements, musically and technically, the challenge of voicing and spirit, they're not any easier than the third movement. you.